Hey everyone, today we're going to discuss about the interval estimate of population mean when the population standard deviation is known. So in our last lesson, we've talked about the point estimate and remember, it's just a specific value. Ang problema kasi kay point estimate, hindi mo din talaga malalaman yung exact value niya kasi tansyahan lang yun eh. So sometimes it is preferable to have an interval. Pag sinabi tayong interval, it is a range of values. And from there, we can see nasan ba dun yung population mean. So when we talk about interval estimate, otherwise known as confidence interval, it is a range of values used to estimate a parameter. So instead of having just one value, may range of values po tayo. Okay? And this estimate may or may not contain the true parameter value. Remember, kahit range of values siya, at the end of the day, it's still an estimate. So, tinatansya pa rin natin. Now, how sure are we na yung parameter value natin, yung population mean natin in this case, nandoon sa interval estimate natin? That is determined by the confidence level. So, pag sinabi po natin confidence level, it is the probability that the interval estimate contains the parameter. It describes what percentages of intervals from many different samples contain the unknown population parameter. So we set a percentage on those confidence levels, and there are three commonly used confidence levels: may 90%, 95%, and 99%. So pag sinabi natin na 90% confidence level, ibig sabihin nun 90% sure tayo na yung population mean nandun sa interval estimate natin. Pag 95% confidence level, 95% sure tayo na yung population mean nandun sa loob ng interval estimate natin. And kapag 99% confidence level, 99% sure tayo na yung interval natin, ay yung population mean natin nandun sa interval estimate natin. However, do not be lulled by the idea na kapag 99% confidence level, edi mas maganda yun, di ba? Kasi if you think about it, 99%, so sure na sure tayo compared kay 95%. The tendency kasi kapag ganun, kapag mas mataas yung confidence level, mas mahaba yung interval estimate. So, nagiging mas sure tayo na nandun ngayon yung population mean, pero the precision of the interval estimate is not that precise kasi mas mahaba yung interval estimate natin. So, mas maganda we strike a balance between the accuracy and the precision na sure tayong nandun yung value, pero liitan din natin. Kasi pag masyadong mahaba yung interval estimate natin, edi isama na natin lahat ng values, di ba? Sure tayo nandun yun. So, at each confidence level natin, meron tayong tinatawag na critical values. We also call this as a confidence coefficients. Now, the critical values could either be z-values or t-values. Pag z-values kasi galing siya kay normal distribution. I remember dun sa last time sa discussion about normal curve, yung mga z-scores, yun yung mga yon. Pero nagagamit natin yun kapag alam natin yung value ni population standard deviation. Applicable lang yung critical values na z-value kapag alam yung value ng population standard deviation. Kapag hindi natin alam yung value ng population standard deviation, we use another kind of distribution, which is the t-distribution. That will be discussed on the next lesson pa. Okay? So, when the population standard deviation is known, z-values are used. And remember, ito constant na to. So, i-memorize nyo na itong mga values na to. At 90% confidence, we use 1.65 as our z-value. At 95% confidence, 1.96. And 99% confidence, 2.58. I-memorize nyo na to. Now, the way we determine the interval estimate is by having the sample mean and we add or subtract a particular value. So, nasa gitna yung sample mean. Kasi remember, yung sample mean natin, yung best point estimate natin, di ba? So, from the sample mean, mag-a-add lang tayo or magsusubtract. Yung ina-add or subtract natin, ang tawag natin dun ay margin of error. So, from the population mean, minus tayo ng margin of error, that's the sample mean minus E, or add tayo. Itong dalawang value na to, yung pinakamababa at yung pinakamataas na value ng estimate natin. Inside it is the population mean. Ganun po yan. Now, we have a margin of error, maximum difference between the observed sample mean and the true value of the population mean. May formula tayo for that. That's E equals Z of alpha over 2. So that's the value of the z-score, or which what we call the critical value, times the population standard deviation divided by the square root of the sample size. And remember, ginagamit lang natin to kapag alam natin yung value ng population standard deviation. Now, the interval estimate is expressed as sample mean minus margin of error is less than the population mean less than the sample size plus sample mean plus the margin of error. Or mas maganda basahin na the population mean is in between the sample mean minus the margin of error and the sample mean plus the margin of error. So, objective natin dito is to solve for the margin of error. Then we subtract or add the sample size to it para malaman natin yung interval. So, ganun natin ginagawa yung interval estimate. So, let's have an example for that. So, a random sample of 50 students were asked about how much their allowance is every day. The average allowance of the sample is found to be 400 and the population standard deviation is 150 pesos. Find the interval estimate of the population mean using 95% confidence level. So, what we do here first is we analyze first the data. First, alamin natin ano ba yung sample mean natin. Ang sample mean natin is yung average ng allowance nila. That's 400. This is not the population mean kasi ito lang yung average ng 50 students. It's a sample mean. So, x bar is equal to 400. Sample mean is equal to 400. Ano yung population standard deviation? 150 pesos. The sample size? 50 students. N equals 50. And the confidence level is 95%. It's important that we know the confidence level so that we would know what kind of critical value to use. So that's our next step. After we determine the values of the variables, let's determine the critical value. Since the confidence level is 95%, matik po yan, z equals 1.96. Minimemorize lang natin yung mga values dito. Kapag 95, 1.96. Pag 99, 2.58. Pag 90, 1.65. Matik po yan. So, since the confidence level is 95%, z equals 1.96. Now that we know these values and the critical value that we're going to use, let's solve for the margin of error. This is the formula. E equals critical value times the standard deviation divided by the square root of the sample size. Critical value, 1.96. Population standard deviation, 150. 150. Sample size, 50. Let's use our calculator to solve for this. We end up with having 41.578. So that's our margin of error. So how we're going to determine the interval estimate? By the way, ang interval estimate tawag din sa kanya ay confidence interval. So the confidence interval is we take the sample mean, subtract the margin of error, and add. The sample mean minus margin of error, ang tawag dyan ay lower limit. Yung pag in-add naman si margin of error, ang tawag dyan ay upper limit. So, first, solve natin yung lower limit. Sample mean minus margin of error. That's 400 minus 41.578. That's equal to 358.422. So, that's our lower limit. Yan yung pinakamababang possible value ng interval estimate natin. Now, next naman, upper limit of the interval. That's the sample mean plus the margin of error. 400 plus 41.578. That's 441.578. So, ano yung confidence interval natin? So, the population mean is estimated to be in between 358.422 and 441.578. So, ibig sabihin po nun, 95% sure tayo na yung population mean in between these two values. But, pwede tayo magkamali kasi estimate lang naman to eh. May 5% chance na baka mali yung data natin. Baka mali yung computation natin. Or not necessarily mali yung computation natin, but rather, tama nga yung computation natin, pero hindi swak yung estimate natin. Kasi may 5% chance to. Kasi estimation lang siya. So, we can say that it's more accurate than the point estimate kasi we're dealing with a range of values than with just a single value. Imagine the chances na tumama ka with just a single value. It's slimmer than having a set of values. Imagine, no? So, remember, we have a context of a word problem here. So, we are 95% sure that the average allowance of the students, the entire students, not the entire population, not just to sample, is between 358.42 pesos and 441.48 pesos. So, we rounded it off to two decimal place kasi we have to contextualize the problem kasi pera yan So, wala namang 2 decimal place na pera, 2 decimal place lang. So, yun. This is our estimated, the estimated population mean is in between these two values. And how sure are we na tama tayo? 95% sure. So, yun. And reminder, having a 99% confidence level is not necessarily better than having a 95% confidence level. Kahit 99% sure tayo na yung population mean is inside that interval, the tendency will have a longer interval. Kasi we are more certain that the population mean is inside the interval if we have a longer interval. Kasi isipin nyo lang, mas mahaba yung, mas marami tayong numbers, mas malamang, mas mataas ang chance na nandun sa loob yung population mean. Pero mas maliit yung, mas hindi tayo sure pag mas maliit yung interval. So, wag lang natin isaalang-alang yung sureness natin, but also the precision of the interval. Kasi pag mas maliit lang yun, mas precise yung interval natin. So, if a longer interval, it's harder to estimate the actual population mean since we're dealing with more numbers. Yeah, 95% confidence level, we are only 95% sure, but the interval is much shorter and more precise. So, I will leave it up to you to study the rest of the examples. So for our main point here, the interval estimate tells us a range of values where the population mean may be located. At 95% confidence level, we are 95% sure that the population mean is inside that confidence interval estimate rather. Nag-edit pa ako dito. The same thing can be said for 90% confidence level and 95% confidence level. So, yun. Nabanggit ko na ito kanina, 99% level, become more sure, but we are increasing the length of the interval, 95%, less sure, but more precise because we shorten the interval. So, in our next lesson, we're going to deal again with interval estimate, but this time, yung population standard deviation naman is unknown. So, what we're going to use there is another kind of distribution, which is what we call the T distribution. We're going to need the Appendix B on your book, so please check that out. So, I hope you guys learned a lot today, and thank you guys for watching.